This list that I am reading to you is what every kid in the liberal arts in 99% of American colleges will be taught. The United States is no better than any other country, and in many areas, worse than many. On the world stage, America is an imperialist country, and domestically it mistreats its minorities and neglects its poor while discriminating against non-whites. 2, there is no better and no worse in literature and in the arts. The reason the universities in the past taught Shakespeare, Michelangelo, and Bach, rather than, let us say, Guatemalan poets, Sri Lankan musicians, and Native American storytellers, was Eurocentrism. 3, God is at best a non-issue and at worst a foolish and dangerous belief. 4, Christianity is largely a history of inquisitions, crusades, oppression, and anti-intellectualism. Islam, on the other hand, is a religion of peace. Therefore, criticism of Christianity is enlightened, and criticism of Islam is Islamophobia. 5, Israel is a racist state, morally no different from apartheid South Africa. 6, big government is the only humane way to govern a country. 7, the South votes Republican because it is still racist and the Republican Party caters to racists. 8, mothers and fathers are interchangeable. Claims that married mothers and fathers are the parental ideal and bring unique things to a child are heterosexist and homophobic. 8, whites can be racist, non-whites cannot be, because whites have power and the powerless cannot be racist. 9, so when George Stephanopoulos asks as if it is some bizarre notion, what did he ask again? Let's play that exactly.
In your interview with Glenn Beck this week, you seem to go further. You said, I understand why Barack Obama wants to send every kid to college, because they are indoctrination mills. What does that mean?
What does that mean? Right. See, I would like him to see this list. All right, number 10. The great world and societal battles are not between good and evil, but between rich and poor and the powerful and the powerless. 11. Patriotism is usually a euphemism for chauvinism. 12. War is ignoble, pacifism is noble. 13. Human beings are animals. They differ from other animals, quote-unquote, primarily in having better brains. 14. We live in a patriarchal society which is injurious to women. 15. Women are victims of men. 16. Blacks are victims of whites. 17. Latinos are victims of Anglos. 18. Muslims are victims of non-Muslim Americans. 20. Gays are victims of straights. 21. Big corporations are bad. Big unions are good. 22. There is no objective meaning to a text. Every text only means what the reader perceives it to mean. 23. The American founders were sexist, racist slaveholders whose primary concern was preserving their wealthy status. 24. The Constitution says what progressives think it says. 25. The American dropping of the atomic bomb on Hiroshima was an act of racism and a war crime. 26. The wealthy have stacked the capitalist system to maintain their power and economic benefits. 27. The wealthy Western nations became wealthy by exploiting third world nations through colonialism and imperialism. That's the indoctrination mill that Senator Santorum was referring to. I take that list from my forthcoming book, Still the Best Hope, available everywhere and pre-order and buy autographed copy through my bookstore, through my store. But it's so fascinating how they feign. I don't know if he feigned. I take that back. I very rarely attack motives. I don't know if George if I could interview George Stephanopoulos, say, sir, do you think that a child, a young person at college in America is given a largely left-wing view of the world in the social studies? What would he say? What would he say? Yeah, he'd probably say no. I don't know what you're talking about. There are conservative professors. Yes, there are conservative professors in the same way that seatbelts sometimes kill. On occasion, that's what happens. But overwhelmingly, seatbelts save lives. Overwhelmingly, the professors teach what I just taught. What I just read to you, that list. That's what your child will get. For this, you will be going into a second mortgage or saddling your young person with debt for the foreseeable future of his or her life, especially if he or she gets a degree in the social sciences, which is useful for nothing in general. It used to be useful for understanding the world better. That's why I used to think that everybody should major in history. Know from where you came. Know where we got. And I would still say it's a great major. But, by the way, there's a very simple way for you to ascertain the politics of a professor. Go to the college bookstore and see what texts that professor prescribes for his class or her class. Good way to do it. Gee, what did you mean by that? Well, who would even think that there is such a thing as indoctrination at the university? You get in there and you're given courses on, you're given seminars, I should say, on how racist you are, or on how to avoid sexual harassment, and all sorts of other politically correct ideals. But no, there's no indoctrination at the university. My favorite, which is also in my book, do you know what my favorite I think is? If there's one example to give, cheerleaders in high schools and colleges have to go, in certain states, they also have to go to cheer women's teams, even though nobody goes to the games in comparison to the men's teams. The teams don't want it. The cheerleaders don't want it. Dogmas that will be given to your child for $40,000, $30,000, $50,000 a year. The list will be in Still the Best Hope, my forthcoming book. But it's unassailable. This is the doctrine. And then George Stephanopoulos has the not even the gall. It's just the lack of awareness to say to Rick Santorum, what? There's indoctrination that takes place at college? Colleges are left-wing seminaries. There are Christian seminaries, Jewish seminaries, and left-wing seminaries. They don't always succeed. Some students are drunk for 4 years. But nevertheless, that's what they try to do. Then they tell us that the college-educated are more likely to vote Democrat. Shocking. Just shocking. How would that be? Of course, their answer is self-serving, because they have been taught to think. See, taught to think, I have to do a new list. I did one for the Wall Street Journal on the way the left uses words. Like invest, they never use the word spend, only the word invest. Here's another one. Taught to think. Taught to, I mean this quite literally. Taught to think for the left means taught to be a left-winger. Because if you are conservative, you don't think. So you were not taught to think. Taught to think means taught to be on the left. And most people on the left would agree with what I just said, if you think you're on the left. Ironically, my view is that, and I back it up in my book, that in fact, leftism is overwhelmingly feelings-based. One of my many proofs is that they use the words, "I'm offended," when people don't agree with them. I must say I almost never, if ever, heard that from a conservative. They say I don't agree, not I'm offended. They're not offended because it's not feelings-based.